Welcome everybody. Today's date is Saturday, November the 15th, 2025, and welcome to the Metropolitan Study Group of the SRIA. My name is Sheen Towers. I am currently the Director of Studies for the Metropolitan College of the SRIA College Number 1. And today we have a presentation by Frater Kevin Swierkosz-Lenart. And Frater Kevin's presentation is on music and esotericism. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to you, Kevin. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sheen, and thank you all for being here. It's such a big pleasure to share today some considerations about the influence that my initiatory journey had on my activity as a composer for classical guitar. So this is not an usual academic talk, and I mean that we're going to listen to quite some music, so give you the conditions to have the best listening experience you could have. Is everything fine on your side? Because I can hear something. Can you hear?
Okay. Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
I just muted.
Okay.
What usually happens, Kevin, is people arrive late and they arrive muted. So I have to kind of
okay. So
as they arrive. So apologies. I'm keeping an eye on things.
Okay. So I'm not worrying about that. Let's move on. So we're going to listen to some music with a short introduction. I've been studying music for several years, and I'm a composer. I compose essentially for classical guitar. And since I'm here as a speaker for the Metropolitan Study Group, I've been interested in esotericism and initiatory topics for a very long time. And so the two realities had a sort of compenetration we're going to show today. I wrote a paper some years ago about the music of my teacher, Maestro Angelo Gilardino, about the influence of esotericism on his music. And at that time, I considered that there were three levels of esoteric artistic expression. And finally, I like this categorization of the influence of esotericism on music. And the first level is art as personal initiatory report. So when the composition, the music reflects the artist's own initiatory experience without the precise symbolic level. I guess the best way to understand this is Mozart Piano Concerto number 20 in D minor. He just became a Freemason. And there is no clear reference to this, but there is a very deep philosophical background in this composition. And I think that I can show you a kind of this way of influencing music from the esoteric perspective in a piece I composed some years ago, classical guitar, which is titled Shibboleth. I think Shibboleth would be clear for most of us present today. I cannot go into much detail, but on a public domain level, Shibboleth is a concept taken from linguistic science and is a word or a concept which defines a group. And this comes from the book of the Judges in the Bible, where the tribe of Gilead used the word Shibboleth in order to discover the Ephraimites, the members of the tribe of Ephraim. And they asked them to pronounce Shibboleth, and the Ephraimites couldn't pronounce that and pronounced instead Siboleth because they could not pronounce the correct shin in Hebrew. And Shibboleth, so Shibboleth is a way of defining being part of a group. And I wanted to describe on a poetic level the feeling of being part of an esoteric group. And in Hebrew, Shibboleth means properly river, fall, or ear of wheat. And you can see that the music is composed by two different parts. The first one is the fall or the river. So it's a very fluid, I would say fluid water music, which is a very sort of style of composition with a very solid tradition, water music. And the second part is a more solar section describing the ear, of wheat. So let's go and just listen to this shibboleth played by the Dedicati, which is Giovanni Martinelli. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you for listening. So this was the first example of esoteric music, I would say. So a poetic description of a personal experience, a personal initiatory experience. And now we go for the art part, I would say a tough one, which is really hard to explain and was really, really, really hard to play. So I say once again, I'm really happy that Lorenzo Micheli, the interpreter, is here with us. You're going to see how hard this music is. And I present here two examples of this second level of esoteric artistic expression. Here, art is conceived as an esoteric symbolic construction. So you should be deeply versed in esoteric symbolism, and symbols are not used just as personal testimony of the experience, but as sort of architectural frame or background in order to generate meta meanings in the composition. I think that one example could be Mozart Magic Flute with this symbolism, which is everywhere, starting from the number of the scene which constitutes the work. It's 22, like the tarots, and we could go more in depth, but what I would like to share with you is how I personally used this way of composing. And I would like to share with you this sonatine called Langage Secret. It's a French title, meaning secret language. And the title comes from the book by Farida Dinatar, the Sufi book called The Language of the Birds, which René Guénon cites as an example of language of the initiates. So the sonatine is constituted by 3 movements. I will go to discuss each in detail. I will go into to listen to each one separately. I think it's better. And the central idea is symmetry as an element of which can illustrate cyclic time. This traditional idea of cyclic time and ever returning reality. In order to do so, there are parallelism and symmetries in the first movement. The parallelism is a way of building up the upper line in a parallel way with the bottom line. So if you can read music, you will see, because we are going to listen with the score, and you will see that the upper line presents some figurations, some rhythms, which are suddenly repeated by the bottom line. And the symmetries are present around bar 49. So you can just read 49 in the score, and then you will see that bar 50 is identical to bar 48, 51 is identical to 47, and so on. So you got, at a certain moment in the piece, this impression of rewind, which is a sort of moving back in time. And this is done also with the second theme. So the sonatine is always built up with 2 themes. The first one is at the very beginning of the composition, and there is a sort of conclusion, and you can easily recognize the second theme. And at the end of the first movement, you have this theme which is presented from the end to the beginning. So we have once again this idea of moving back in time and defining a cycle of time. I will propose so we can to listen to the first movement, and then we're going to discuss the other ones. So here it is, Lorenzo Micheli Pucci at the guitar. Okay, so very dense music, very hard to play. I don't know if you could have this impression, this feeling at bar 66 of moving back through time. It's very hard to play this rhythm. So thank you once again, Lorenzo. It was very impressive. And I'm going to present to you the second movement, which consists of 4 passacaglias. Passacaglia is a traditional form in classical music, which consists of the presence of a repeated bass line called the tenor. And over this repeated bass line, there are diminutions, so up an upper line with several figurations. And what I wanted to do here is to play with prime numbers. So, as I said, we have 4 passacaglias, and the time is always expressed in a prime number. So it's 5 4 times, 7 4 times, 11 4, and the tenor is always conceived in 4 4 times. So each passacaglia consists of 4 bars, which is the minimum necessary to make the end of the tenor coincide with the end of the bar. It's a sort of mixing up a 4 4 time with the prime numbers. And at the end, we have a very hard to play passacaglia in 11 4 times. And we have the repetition at bar 17 of a single note. You're going to recognize this very easily. At the end of the piece, there is this very percussive repetition of just one note. E is the 5th note of the mode of the scale I was using in the bar 17, so it's just another way of playing with prime numbers. And aesthetically speaking, it serves to rarefy the sound material as much as possible, because afterward I introduce some noise. So what you should pay attention to is this repeated bass line and this change of density, which suddenly happen at the end of the piece. I think it was here. Yeah. Okay, so just one element in order to understand this kind of composition, as you maybe have observed, the last passacaglia, which begins at bar 13, uses the repetition in the upper line, so it's very easy to recognize through the composition. Ti ta 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 ti ta. So it's just another way of building up a passacaglia. And the final movement is Les Hasards. It's a paraphrase of a text by Jacques Monod, a text of biology, which is a very good one. I would suggest you to read Les Hasards et la Nécessité, which here becomes the case of necessity. So the title by Jacques Monod is The Case and the Necessity, and here is The Case of Necessity. Because the idea here was to build up a chaotic structure and deriving a sort of necessity from it. And so it begins with the random perturbation of an ostinato up to bar 19. So you will listen to a very standard percussion, da 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 da, and there is a perturbation of this line. And up to bar 19, there is a new section which opens up with a theme on the bass A and one on the upper line B, and they are reversed. I was also always interested in this kind of cyclic times, repetition, inversions, and contamination between two words. And beats 29 and 48 represent two axes of symmetry as explained above. So just we have been seeing for the other movements. And from bar 53, so at the end, the first 19 bars are mirrored in a different way. So at the end of this piece, which is something we're going to see also with the last piece I will present in this section, I always use this technique of mirroring the first part of the piece and to present it from the end to the beginning. So here I had a sort of technical problem, with Lorenzo there are no technical problems, but for a normal human guitar player it would be hard to play this kind of music, so I was forced to think of a specific technique for the right hand to explain to interpreters how to perform this music. So here is the third movement. We'll start now. Okay. Wonderful playing by Lorenzo. Wonderful. Just astonishing. Thank you. I present now another short, very short piece, which is a good example of this way of conceiving symbol as a frame for building up the structure of the piece. And this is a piece called Ouroboros, so a very well-known symbol in our world. Again, this idea of cyclic time. This is dedicated to a very beloved friend and brother of mine. And the entire piece is built around the central axis of symmetry. And from this midpoint, every line is mirrored backwards, note by note, creating a perfectly reflective structure. But what is interesting now is that on the piano, I added another level of complexity. So I mirrored also the right hand with the left hand. I will show you what I mean by this, and then we're going to listen to the piece. But the idea is that here we will have, this is performed by Sequoia, an English pianist, a very, very great English pianist. Here, the idea is that at the very beginning, we have a line in the in the right hand, here. And that at the very end, we should find the same line mirrored back in the right hand. So, tara tara tira, we're going to find down here and from here to here. Dari dari dari. I'm going to show you. Here. Okay, so I think now it's clear the idea, and everything is built up following this structure. So at bar, I guess, 10 to 11, we have this axis of symmetry. Okay, thank you for listening. And we come now to the third and last level of esoteric artistic expression, where art is a vehicle for inner growth. I mean, here, what I'm interested in is a sort of transmission of esoteric knowledge and pointing out to a very specific content in esotericism. And I'm going to show you this approach to composing with a piece which is inspired by Martinism, and more explicitly by three different works by Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin, and which is played by Matteo Smieri, who is here with us today. I'm very pleased of that. And so it's again a sonatine, so in three movements, and it's inspired to three different works by Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin. The first one is L'homme de désir, the man of desire. And the idea of the whole piece is to describe a complementary movement from the man to God and from God to the man, with the grace of Jesus Christ. And this is traced by three different works. So L'homme de désir, Les cimetières d'Amboise, the Amboise Cemetery, and L'Homme Esprit, the Man Spirit, the last book by Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin, where he says essentially that in Christ we are all priests in the Jewish sense, and we are a living temple for a sacrifice. So the sky come to earth, but in the first movement, L'Homme de Désir, the man desires the sky. And this is represented with this motivic element of going from down from the bottom to the top, which builds up the whole movement. So I would have no much more to say, because the rest of the piece is conceived in a very poetic manner, and it's not a very intellectual and hard way of composing as we've just seen for Langage Secret. I just invite you to try to recognize this movement, this ascending movement, as a sort of a musical way of describing man's desire. We're going to listen to the first movement. what a chance to have such a good interpreter like Matteo. Thank you so much, Matteo. Very, very lovely interpretation of this music. And as I said, the second movement is inspired to this text, which is so beautiful, by Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin, called Les Cimetières d'Amboise, Amboise Cemetery, which begins with this introduction that I would like to share with you before listening to the piece, where Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin says, "I love to carry my steps into the asylum of the dead. There, as fate so dies away, it takes less effort to understand the language and grasp that thought. For the dead do not have that insane idea that everything goes dark within men. In them, everything is alive. For them, no more silence. Around them one hears the sobs of the sinner, the rages of the impious, the hints of the sage, and the gentle harmony of those whose friendship, zeal, and virtue formed but a single heart for as long as they lived." So beautiful. So he essentially walks through this cemetery, and he makes the exercise of listening to dead people. And the message is that there is a sense, a meaning to the man's life. And I wanted to make a sort of differentiation between this first statement of a deep sense of life, of sky coming to the earth, as announced by dead people, and then as done by the Christ himself. But musically, you're going to see that this is the same thing in the second and in the third movement. Everything is a descending movement from E to A to La. Ti, ton. So there is this movement here, and here is performed by harmonics. What is harmonic is a particular way of playing guitar. When you play guitar normally, you produce a tone which is a mix of several harmonics, several frequencies. And if you pick the chord in a particular manner with a very precise proportion, you can select a precise frequency, which gives this very ghostly tone you're going to recognize. Please pay attention to these movements of descending line from E to A, because it's very important that we're going to see exactly the same movement in a very different way in the third movement. Let's listen to Les Cimetières d'Amboise. Okay, let's see what happens in the third movement. As I said, we have the same idea of a descending line, but there is the rush of the spirit and the big happening in the history of a man, the descending of the Holy Christ. So it goes from E to A here in a very rushly manner. And you're going to see that this simple structure builds up the whole piece, which is a rondeau. A rondeau means that the piece is built up with a refrain section, which I introduce in the beginning. And the other sections are just an elaboration, a variation of the two movements we've just heard. So the idea here is to describe l'homme esprit, the sky coming to earth, and this movement, this musical movement from E to A in a rushly manner, and the refrain which resumes the whole composition. Enjoy. So thank you. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening to all of this music. I hope it was clear, you could enjoy. And I'm here if you have some questions or you want to share your reactions to all of this.
Thank you very much indeed, Frater Kevin. And firstly, I'm just changing the view to speaker view so that we can, for the purpose of the recording, monitor the questions. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate you and also the incredible musicianship of the guitarist that played these pieces. You are a hard taskmaster. Composing such music and expecting somebody to interpret it and play it well. So you've found some incredible musicianship there in those people. So you're very blessed, and we were very blessed to listen to their interpretation of your music.
Thank you. Indeed, yeah, they are. They are. We should say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you to the guitarist and the who was the pianist again?
Is a pianist called Sequoia. Is an artistic name he uses.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, he's an active pianist on YouTube and he's very active in playing new music.
Yes,
And,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, as is customary in our meetings, we open up to the presenter for discussion. So, if anybody has anything they would like to ask or comment upon, it would be helpful for me in moderating if you could raise your hand in the chat using the little icon at the bottom, the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. And just raise your hand, that would be great. And then I can see who's asking what. So, Brig, welcome, Brig. It's lovely to know you're here. Over to you, Brig.
Thank you, Shane. Kevin, I have to admit, in my total ignorance, having only got to grade 2 on the piano far too many years ago for me to care to remember, I shall never, ever, I think, see music in quite the same way again. But my question to you is, as a composer, do you feel this music in your head? Do you actually hear it in your head before you look at the mathematical construction of it?
Thank you for your question. I should say that the two things come together often, in the sense that I'm interested in a particular structure, and this is derived from the particular interest I have in that moment for composing. So I'm interested in Ouroboros, I'm interested in how can I express this line of desire in music. And then I start to think about structure, and the line comes as a sort of inspiration. I couldn't describe this in a different manner. So the two things come together, and it's very important to try to keep these two parts of music when you bring up the composition, because if you are too focused in structure, the composition is not a living matter. And if you are too much taken by the spontaneity, so fast you come to the déjà entendu, something which has already been done. So it's very important to keep up the mix of theory, structure, and inspiration, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brig. And we have Matt with your hand up. Over to you, Matt.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. First of all, I wanted to extend my congratulations. Phenomenal presentation, very thought-provoking for an early morning, albeit very British wet in Southern California today. I wanted to ask, have you thought about your next foray into this presentation style research? Maybe changing to woodwind or brass instruments to see what you could design then?
Yeah, thank you. So when you start studying composition, you are interested in different things on a theoretical level, but then life is done of encounters, friendship, relationship, and it happened to me as a guitarist. I was in contact with wonderful guitarists, and you start to compose for them. But I had the chance to write a very deep, in my personal vision, composition for trumpet, viola, and guitar, which is called Erebos. It is inspired to the Greek deity of darkness. So I tried to expand my investigation to different instruments, but when you compose, you would really like that your music could be played. So you should have the chance to meet a musician ready to accept what you propose. So this is the only example. It has been recorded. It's not yet published, but yes, of course, I try to explore something different than guitar, as you have seen with the pianist Sequoia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you do publish it, please let us know. We would love to be able to hear the
I'll
pieces.
share.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question in the chat from Jim. It's a lovely question here. So I'm going to read this out for you, Kevin. This presentation and talk was just fabulous. You are very skilled. My question is, do you think that the speed or pace of a tempo helps create an artistic mood, such as slow for, say, a funeral dirge versus fast, almost faster than a heartbeat, generating excitement and joy? Question mark. My sub-question, did you develop your talent at an early age? You are as great as Mozart. Thank you, brother. That's from brother Jim in Texas.
Let's try to make a nuance on this. It's very hard to keep as a congratulation, but thank you. Yeah, of course, the pace or tempo is very important matter. And what I would like to share about this topic is that the composer has not the final knowledge of his own piece. I mean, music happens and you can catch it up, but you don't know everything about the music you just composed. You don't know everything about it. What do I mean? When I conceive music, it happens to me to introduce often a very fast tempo. And this is not always appropriate for the piece. And I can realize that when I start to chat and to discuss with the interpreter, and I had a very good interpreter of mine, a very good one, who's called Cristiano Porquedo. He's from Sardinia, and he uses to make as much as freedom as he can in front of my music, and to change my paces, which is something I do really appreciate, because you don't have the final knowledge about your own music. So it contributes, and the composer should not be seen as the final judge of this particular issue of the music. And then, yeah, I started to study music when I was 11, but I really had the chance. So I studied in a music school in Rome, but then I met two great composers for guitar, which are Angelo Gilardino, who was a great master to me, and he passed away in 2022. A very wonderful composer. I do really encourage you to look for his music on the web, Angelo Gilardino. And the other one is a living master, a very talented and skilled composer, who's called Dusan Bogdanovic, who has been my master for 4 or 5 years. I had the chance to meet him in Switzerland when I moved there to work. And both of them contributed to the creation of this personal musical world I shared with you today.
Thank you very much. Stephen, you have your hand up. Over to you, Stephen.
Fantastic presentation, Kevin. I mean, it was really some remarkable pieces of music. And my question is, in a sense, you were talking and presenting from the esoteric effect and sources your music had. But your professional background, obviously, is a physician. So do you think about how of the biology and the physical experience of music by a living being, as well as the higher functions that being actually experiences your music esoterically? Do you think about, as it were, the biology of music as well as the esotericism of music?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And as you have seen, there is a direct influence of biology in one of the pieces. In Langage Secret, I referred to a book of a biologist, Jacques Monod. So one cannot hide himself. I'm a physician, and it's reflected in my music. But as you said, I conceive music as a I would say a biological living thing. You cannot create music just starting from theory, and it's not just something, for instance, it's very actual topic. You cannot create living music with artificial intelligence up to now, I would say, because what artificial intelligence does is just mixing up previous structure in order to produce something coherent. But what happens in music is something you cannot catch up just on a rational level, and something that brings up to this traditional notion of mana, which is the defining root for men in several languages. And the mana is this sort of collective conscience, which is spread up, and you can reach as a man from a partial angle and try to bring something back from that. And that's, in my vision, that is why I have not the final knowledge of my music, because it is something living which exists out of me. I can go and reach up, try to bring it back with the theory, a code, which is the musical theory, but it belongs to the humanity. It belongs to this human intelligence, which is out of us, I would say. So thank you for your question, because it's a very important topic for my understanding of music.
Well, yes, I suppose it's that objectivity of science, but in the context of what you experience as a living human being, which has a validity all of its own. What you talk about, how you compose, that may well have its physical rooting in biology and science, but your experience is that's just not the whole story. There's something more that there is that you engage with and experience. So fascinating. Thanks very much, Kevin.
Thank you, Stephen.
Sorry, I was muted. I said, Boris, over to you. Thank you for your patience, Boris.
Thank you, Shane. Kevin, congratulations on the presentation, and Matteo on your mastery. I won't even mention that I have my guitars here in the corner. Nowhere close to being mentioned to this mastery we saw today. I have maybe not a question, maybe just maybe a point for your deep dive of philosophizing. You're obviously making a link between composing and consciousness and spirituality and where you have come. And if you listen to the old masters, from Mozart we mentioned to Handel, Haydn, and the others, they've also achieved a certain level of let's say spiritual development, and clearly their music is from another realm. So isn't it interesting that because the music is different, your music is different to Mozart's. I'm sure you're humble enough not to be happy to be kind of compared to him, but let's put it in the context. If you look at Mozart's music and your music, it's a different music. Does it mean that our consciousness has evolved over centuries? And where do you think it's going to go? Because if it kind of maps where the human mind have gone to, and I fully agree with what you said about AI. AI is trained based on the human mind, and I'm not sure that AI will be able to make this kind of leap from a Mozart to modern classical music today. Do you feel that somehow it maps where we as humans have evolved spiritually?
Yeah, thank you for your question, which is a very deep one. I think that the topic of evolution in the arts is a very important one. And we have a major bias coming from the philosophy of Hegel, because Hegel shaped our way of conceiving the world with this very strong idea that spirit manifests itself through times and through history. And this had a very strong influence on Karl Marx, and somehow this came to our vision of the world with a sort of linear evolution from ancient time to the present. And in traditional science and in esotericism, we tend to look at things in a different manner, and or at least I try to do so. I think that there is no univocal evolution in music, and there is no evolution at all. There is a way of being spontaneous in your time, like for instance, for your dresses, it's normal for me to sort out like this, and not as a man of the 18th century. And when you do music, it's something very similar, but again, this should be something living, something spontaneous, because there was a sort of rigidity in musical theory. I'm referring to the Darmstadt school, to this way of thinking music as a duty of evolution and of experiencing new music. And I mean, there was this idea in the Darmstadt school that one had to feel the necessity to write atonal music, which I don't share. In my music, if I can talk about me as a composer, but I think I can. I'd like to use different musical languages, and it was present in the presentation today. There is modal music, which refers to something which is close to more traditional languages, like for instance in Sonatine d'Amboise, and very experimental or new languages like in Langage Secret, using a mathematical pattern also for the scale. I think that the evolution is something spontaneous, so it should happen. You should not guide him, but you should go with the evolution, and which brings up to our conception also of Rosicrucianism, I guess. We want to have a living Rosicrucianism with its roots back in time, but with the spontaneous way of existing in the modern world. And I think, for the last part of your question, that in artificial intelligence is a sort of map of our present, because it's a mix of our productions as human beings up to now. So it's just a sort of picture of where we are now. But just to add last part, to add an example of this way of proceeding in a non-linear way, Ludwig van Beethoven, in his last compositions, had a sort of glimpse of what was going to happen in the following years. You can find a sort of jazzy features in some piano sonatas or atonal music, and it's just unbelievable. He moved forward and then backward with other languages. So I wouldn't say that Schoenberg is an evolution of Beethoven. It's just something which happened afterward in a living manner, which is thoughtful, provoking for our way of conceiving Rosicrucianism, maybe.
Thank you. So just to summarize, I'm hearing you speak more of the material evolution in our material world, not so much that it was a spiritual kind of advancement to the degree how the music changed. It was more the theory, the science, the habits, the kind of understanding of how music is composed, and also personal part of each of the composer, which kind of changes more than the higher dimensions.
But both of them is the only way. I would say it's not an evolution. It's impermanence in a way of, in a more traditional way. You cannot be the same as in the 17th century. But it's not. It doesn't imply that you are better or worse than before, which could be a sort of deviation also in esotericism. This idea that, oh my God, in the ancient Egypt they were all genius and we are crap, or you see, I think we're living now. What are we going to do now? Because impermanence is the only perfect law in this plan of reality.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a brief comment, please, on this subject. There is a book written by somebody called Jacques Attali. The title of the book is Noise, the Political Economy of Sound. Jacques Attali was, I think, a financial advisor to Francois Mitterrand, the old French prime minister. And in that book, he puts forward a theory that throughout all of humanity's history, there have been changes in the form and structure, or the way humans think about music and structure music. And that when the form and structure of music has transformed into something new, that has acted as, if you like, a precursor for radical transformation in society in general. So the changes in musical form herald the changes that are about to take place in society. I find that a very interesting concept. I don't know whether you've come across anything similar yourself, or what your feelings are on this, Kevin.
I would be very cautious about a strong theory on that. I think that the way you presented it is very interesting. It could be true at a certain level, but there is no strong theory in the living spirit. I mean, music can be the cause or the consequence of a changement, a radical change in the world. I wouldn't reduce that to a specific theory for music through all the history of the man. But it's very thought-provoking, I would say. And Attali is a very clear and deep thinker in what he says.
Yes. I think what he's getting at is that musicians and composers, when they begin to do something different, that they are, in a sense, tuning in to the new before the bulk of society begins to tune into the new.
They are the first to see that.
Yes,
maybe.
yes.
Yeah.
Alex at Atlantis Bookstore, over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Very interesting. I just have a little question about your process. So, imagine, what you started as a musician, playing and interpreting other people's compositions. As you progressed, you then studied composition yourself and then began composing. But what I'm interested in is, I imagine around the same time you then started your esoteric or Rosicrucian journey. So whilst your composition journey was also parallel to that journey of being understanding more mystical concepts. And when we study or we come across a new concept, and we study it for a while and we contemplate it, we have that sort of moment of illumination and understanding. Does that come with musicality for you, or are they intertwined, or do you, as you have that moment of realization or understanding about a concept, is it accompanied by some form of musicality? when does the music, for example, when you talk about Saint-Martin, whilst you were studying these concepts, is that realization accompanied with a musical understanding? It's like, is it intertwined, or is it, do you then, you understand the concept and then think about it musically, or is the realization musical, if you see what I mean?
Thank you for your question. I would say that we'll answer as the first answer. I will present to you this concept stated by my great master, who was a composer, but was a great man and a great philosopher, Angelo Gilardino. He knew very, very well music history, of course, but literature as well, and graphic arts and paintings. And he said, you see, Kevin, the three of them are just a different way of doing the same thing. And to me, esotericism, music, and what I do as a physician, a psychiatrist, and it's always the same thing I try to do, which I cannot explain. Otherwise, I would have been obliged to do this in such a different manner, through different specialities. But when I started with the music, I started with a very clear focus of interest in spirituality in music, even if I was not completely aware of that because I was a kid. But when I met this music by Angelo Gilardino, which was rooted in philosophy, art, it was like the discovery of the world to me. And it was a continuous to my readings, to my journey in esotericism. And as a student of music at that time, I was really interested in that, in spirituality, in music. And then it happened to me to become a composer. This came quite late in my life. I was 29 or 30, I would say, because the guitar is a very particular instrument. So when you are a guitarist and you would like to compose, you feel that the guitar is a sort of box, because you cannot compose whatever you like to compose for guitar. You should be very cautious about the feasibility. Even if I pushed very far away the feasibility concept thanks to my interpreters, and the encounter with the music of Dusan Bogdanovic, my second master, was a way of breaking up the box. And when I started to play that, I realized that there was a very large room of freedom in the instrument. So I started to compose, but it was always the same attempt, the same need of a sort of meaning of life, of sense, of spirituality. I don't know how to say that, and that's why I have to compose and to study psychiatry and to do all the stuff I do, because it's my deep raison d'être, this research.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You are muted, Shin.
Wayne, thank you for your patience, Wayne. If you can hear me, over to you. Are you still there, Wayne?
Can you hear us, Wayne?
It looks like his video is frozen at the moment.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed. In the meantime, I have a question for you. I'll see if I can find the right words for this, but you know, there's an expression that probably many of us are familiar with, that a temple should be difficult of access. One thing I noticed about the compositions, or at least some of the compositions that you shared with us today, is that they were very dense. They were very quite impenetrable. You use a lot of dissonance. And it reminded me, have you heard of Les Mystères des Voix Bulgaires, the Bulgarian women choir?
No, I should avoid no.
Oh, I really recommend you check them out. Le Mystère des Voix Bulgaires.
D'accord.
Bulgarian women folk choir, and they sing using what I think they call diaphonic harmony, where it's really close, like a minor second interval, or the interval from a major seven to the octave, but spread apart. So it's very, very dissonant. But they use it to such incredible effect to create tension and then release. So I guess my question is, what's your feelings about the use of tension and release and dissonance and the purpose of that in your compositions?
Thank you for the question. I began with the very consonant music, so modal music derived from my first musical experience and my first desire. And then it came very spontaneously to move toward this language using dissonances. But the only way I can conceive to use that is that you should reduce that to a simple level where everything is clear and somehow necessary. What I would say is that complexity should be the result of several very simple bricks with a very clear and identified level of meaningfulness. So I use that in a way that makes sense to me and should make sense in a more global structure. If you use dissonances just in a completely free way, you don't achieve a result that is satisfying in my vision. You should have a theoretical framework and a global structure where the dissonance could happen. And this is rooted in music. I mean, there is this dissonance quartet by Mozart, where he experiments that, but it dates back to the very beginning of vocal music, like for instance, Italian composer of the Renaissance, Marenzio. There is this wide use of dissonances, but it's in the frame of a poetic necessity, which makes sense at the end.
Thank you, Kevin. Wonderful response. Thank you. Wayne, you're back with us. We lost you for a moment. Your video froze, and I don't know whether you could hear, but you're welcome, please. Thanks for your patience. Over to you, Wayne.
You're muted, Wayne.
You need to unmute yourself, Wayne.
And I think he's frozen now. No? Works?
No, you're still muted, Wayne. The bottom left corner of your Zoom screen, click on
the wrong symbol. Okay, Kevin, congratulations on your work there. I'd like to look at the sort of technical aspects, if I may. It's obviously a lot of the music is very complex. You must have a very fine knowledge of the technical requirements playing a guitar. You are a guitarist yourself?
Yeah, I've been studying guitar for 10 years. I got a master degree, the equivalent of a master degree.
Yeah, because you obviously know what is possible and what is impossible. Everything you write is possible, but it wouldn't be the first the first thought of some people is some brilliant technical displays, both your input or your creativity and the performer's ability to realize it. I had the feeling in a number of places that it was almost as if it was improvised. Now, does this form a part of it, or you commit everything to paper using the knowledge you have of the instrument and the requirements and so on?
Thank you, because I do really appreciate this feeling of improvised music, because it means that is spontaneous and living, which is my goal at the end. But the music is, all of my music is conceived on the paper. I don't use the guitar to test if it's feasible or not. And it's grounded in a theoretical reflection. To me, it would be just impossible to be 100% spontaneous when composing. It's not my way of doing that. But the final goal is to achieve a result of spontaneity and living matter. So thank you. And it's feasible, but it's quite at the limits of feasibility. I have a publisher, a Canadian publisher called Les Productions d'Oz, which published Sonatine d'Amboise, for instance, and he published 5 compositions of mine inspired to comic books. It's called 5 Comics. And they're very, 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 very hard to play composition. And the publisher is a guitarist himself. And he wrote to me saying, listen, this stuff is not feasible. It's not feasible for a human being. But my interpreter, Giovanni Martinelli, a young, very talented guitarist who played the first piece, Shibboleth, answered back that it was feasible to him. And we have recordings proving that it's feasible, but it's on the limit of what is feasible for a human being.
Yes. It's that sort of fluid nature of the music which you've written. You see, I'm a composer too, and
okay, great.
Oh yes, I've long time as a composer, and also a music director, and I play a number of instruments. So it's all very familiar to me, the sort of things you're doing there. But it's been quite remarkable to listen to that, because I too, like you, I don't start off with playing things on the piano or whatever, and then transfer them, because I always felt that doing it's the wrong way around, because it inhibits your creativity to transfer things from the instrument. The mind needs to be free on it. It's just been a remarkable experience that you've managed to achieve what you have, using these sort of traditional ways of the thought first and then the thing. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It's a thoroughly worthwhile and an intriguing afternoon. Where do you actually live, Kevin?
I live in Switzerland, in Lausanne.
Switzerland. So,
yeah.
Well, maybe one day our paths will cross. If I come to Switzerland, I do have to go to Prague next week. So I do sometimes have to go out on various engagements. But we must keep in touch.
Let's keep in touch. I come to London on a quite regular basis, and it happens that I live between Lausanne and Paris, so we should manage to meet up.
Wonderful. And you come to London occasionally?
Yeah.
Well,
of course, yeah.
We must try to arrange, if you would, for us to meet up at some point during one of your visits. I mean, you can get all my details from Sheen or whatever, know.
Yeah. We'll be delighted. Thank you.
Plenty of things. Good. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Wayne.
Wayne, you have to come to Metcall then, because Kevin comes to Metcall. So you'll have to grace us with your pleasure at Metcall then.
well done, Alex. Yeah, well done. Let's do some pub for the Metcall.
That sounds like a great idea.
Which completely deserves.
Alistair has a question, so I'm spinning it round.
It's gone off the screen.
Oh.
Can you
I can see you. I can see you.
Kevin, good afternoon and well done. brilliant presentation, and I love some of your composition.
Thank you. Thank you, Alistair.
I'm not musically orientated, so I'm going to hit you with something Rosicrucian. In your work, in your esoteric compositions, tell us a little bit about the love you put into it.
Oh, that's a good one. The love I put into that. Okay, there is brotherly love in at least two of the composition, which are Shibboleth. Shibboleth is dedicated to a brotherly, a beloved brother of mine. He's a brother I had in Rome, who is not musician at all, and he's been interested in my music for several years. At a certain moment, he asked me, listen, I'd like you to have a composition of yours dedicated to me. And that's the origin of Shibboleth. So I asked this guitarist, Giovanni Martinelli, to play this piece, even if it was not dedicated directly to him, but dedicated instead to my brother. And I can say his name. I mean, it's a public piece. It's called Luca Senatori. He was a brother of mine in Rome. Because normally, in order to get your piece played, the most common thing to do is to dedicate the piece to the player, so that he can say, okay, this is the first interpretation of the piece, which is dedicated to me, and you are to the score dedicated to the player. But this very close friend of mine, Giovanni Martinelli, accepted to play this piece, Shibboleth, even if it was dedicated to a non-musician at all. And it's the example also of the Ouroboros piece, who is dedicated to another brother, who is not a musician. It's called Luca Pochini, who had this particular love and predilection for this symbol Ouroboros. And I had this contact with this pianist, Sequoia, and I decided to compose this piece to make a dedication, a lovely dedication to a brother called Ouroboros. And then you have another level of love, which is the deep love I have for Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin. I would say love because, as he says in Cimetière d'Amboise, one can talk or feel dead people, even if it's not completely crazy. I'm a psychiatrist, so I should be granted for that. But I do really love this man and this path and this way of considering the esoteric path. And I think there was this kind of love in this music, and love is what keep music alive, a living matter, a fluid matter, something which exists out of us. And ultimately, love is trying to kill the ego. It's the way of loving to me. So it's this way of saying, I'm not the final master of my music. Music is something I catch up with some techniques, but I let it happen as a living being out of me. That's the way of loving music.
Can I jump in, please? Hello, Kevin. I'm Shiraz. I'm over here in London. I just wanted to come back to you about love in 1 second, but first make just a nod to Sheen and the person that was asking a question earlier, and Sheen's book on the political economy of noise. There was a book I studied probably 100 years ago when I was at university for a critique of the political economy of the sound, which was Baudrillard, a French philosopher, who talked about the commodification of our cultural objects and how they interacted with society. And the question before that was about the evolution of the spirit and the evolution of music and how that integrated with society. And I just remembered a quote of Nietzsche saying that you could always judge the health of a society by the quality of their aesthetic output, which brings me to one question about love for you. And as a psychiatrist, if you've read Christopher Bolas's Transformational Object, and the aesthetic object being the striving or the search for that loved connection that one first feels in a primal state attached to the mother, and that we then spend the rest of our lives seeking that transformational object in the aesthetic or creating it. And I wondered for you, as part of your musical creation was that search for the transformational object, that aesthetic experience.
Yeah, so I couldn't hear perfectly, but if I understand, you're pointing out that coming back to this idea of evolution through history, one can conceive love as a transformation and getting out of the box of evolution, involution, and just focusing on transformation, and so conceive aesthetics as a transformation tool. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that's a very thought-provoking way of seeing that, because transformation is just another way of saying impermanence, which is a way of challenging ego. Because who are you? You cannot really answer. Some days ago, I was talking with a close friend of mine who happens to be a Sufi initiate, and he asked me, "Why are you going to do this presentation? Do you want to make your ego even more brilliant? What do you really want to do?" And he said, "Who are you, Kevin?" And he said that directly, and I said, "Honestly, I don't know." And he said, "Oh, what a beautiful answer." and this continuously aesthetic change, I think it's a way of burning one's ego, like in the language of the bird, in order to make it a pure nothing and to open up for contemplation. I don't know if it answered to your question, but it was a way for me to share this experience. Thank you.
Kevin, can I just quickly jump in and say, as someone who's been at these study group meetings for hundreds of years, I can honestly say that one of the things that people who present at these study groups have gone through a process to get to that point of presenting. And that process is brilliant for them. It is sometimes mind-blowingly brilliant for them. And so you were modestly saying, "I don't know why I'm doing this." I think it was for you as well, and that you've achieved something in expressing this esoteric concept of music. So to me, I can see this is wonderful for you if you haven't realized that yourself.
Thank you, Alistair.
While we're at Atlantis, is anyone else wanting to ask a question? Feel free. Okay. I have a question for you then. Oh, there is somebody. Over to you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I try to write my voice.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Anna, and I graduated primary school in piano and 1 year in violin. However, I preferred piano, and my teacher was very, very sad because my, sense of hearing was very, very perfect. However, but that is not the point, because I also very passionate about esoteric as well, and also astrology as well. However, I graduated film school, so it's all together. But I was wondering about, if it's not too personal, what is your sign of zodiac?
Yeah. So I should avoid. I think in English it's Aries. You say
Aries.
Aries. Yeah.
Aries.
Right, because when you presented all composition, for me, I heard and I saw a lot of energy. For example, the first one, what was very up and down, like a talking two voices. So I noticed Gemini, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and they like talk too much, and they are like, upside down, upside down. On the other composition, I saw Cancer. So, energy of mother, energy of, warm house, energy of pure love, mother to a child. And the third composition, the last one, we were talking about the bass rhythm. I saw energy of Capricorn, because Capricorn is a very, very hard worker and he's very ambitious, and it is like a factory man for me. So all of those, when I saw, it's, you know, for me as a background of filmmaking, so it's absolutely pure inspirational lecture. On the astrology side, I noticed that I am completely with myself. Currently, I am in grief. So what exactly you just said, that transformation is the pure love is transformation of the ego. And now I need to fight with my ego to move forward with the grief, which is absolutely fantastic. And this lecture is like a full combo, 3-in-1. You know, just gave me like a, okay, this is a gift for you, and use it. And I'm going to use it anyway. However, I just, you know, love it how you express all emotions, which needs to lead to composition, which always is a one piece. So absolutely, I am. May the force be with you always.
Thank you for this interpretation of astrological interpretation of my music. Thank you.
Yeah.
Listening.
So Kevin, I have a question for you, please.
Yeah.
Do you have a relationship at all with improvised music? Do you ever experiment with purely improvised music?
I never tried to make music in such a way. My master, Dusan Bogdanovic, is a great master of improvising, and he, of course, he gives so much importance to improvisation in music, and it's not my way of doing that. I remember that I was studying one piece composed by him, and I was going to play with him. So during the lesson, I was very cautious about being precise in what I was doing. And I say at the end, this part is not very easy to play. He said, oh, just change that, do this and this. And it's very hard to me to do when it's written down. At the end, I'm very tied to the written music. Which is interesting as an interpreter, but I'm not a very good interpreter. I mean, playing guitar to me is just a tool to reach composing. But I do really appreciate when my interpreters take such a liberty with my music. I encourage that. They could change pace, tempo, even notes. I do really appreciate that. So it's quite intriguing. Something which is not allowed to myself is very welcome when it's performed by the others.
I'm very interested in improvisation, because what I feel when it's done well, what happens is we surrender ourselves as a conduit for something to come through from somewhere else. The whole concept of the muse, if you like, the sacred spirit of music that flows through the interpreter, flows through the improviser. So that the sound that comes out, particularly when it's a group of people improvising,
it's very
has a character and a spirit which is unique, that just comes through in that moment because of the combination of people and influences. I just wondered if that's something that you feel, as you said, it's not your natural way of working musically, but do you see that there may be some value in exploring that?
Of course, yeah. As I said, I encourage that even with my music, but is somehow music could never be the same, which is the other very intriguing part of this. We're not very acquainted with this concept in this age of recorded music, where music is always recorded music, but in a natural conception of music. So, I mean, the live performance. There is this triad of music, interpreter, and public for a very precise moment. So at the end, it doesn't matter if it's written music or improvised music, it's living music. And improvising is just adding a layer of this spontaneity, which is very interesting. Yes, of course.
Do you know whether the guitarists or the musicians that interpreted your compositions, do you know, do they improvise, and what's their relationship with improvisation like? I
think that since they are all classical guitarists with a very classical background, they're not very, they never explored interpretation systematically, I would say, for what I know about them. But for instance, Giovanni Martinelli, which is a sort of, I can say that a champion of my music, he recorded a monography consecrated to my music. He somehow changed some part of my compositions, reinterpreting and improvising on them sometime, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask, or any observations or comments, please? If you do, if you could raise your hand in the chat, that would be great.
It would be less dark.
Yeah. Anybody? Because if we don't have any more questions, then is there any kind of closing remarks that you might have to that you'd like to share, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm good. Hold on, Alistair has another question.
Go ahead.
Or a closing remark, depending on how one.
Kevin, we just had a brilliant little off the. I won't repeat what we just talked about. But it comes down to the esoteric side of music, in the sense that, in my opinion, it wasn't until people were able to write it down, and then it became an esoteric science. Because if you couldn't read music, if you couldn't read music, you couldn't repeat that music. Now, I will then tell. I know we've got a situation here. I was in a scout group. We were so good. This is a scout band. We were so good. We were taken along to a music school to learn how to be better. And the composer of this musical school stood up in front of us and said, "Right, I've just handed out the music. Will you play it?" And we said, "No, we can't play music. We do it all by ear. So you hum it and we'll repeat it." Okay? But there are two schools here, isn't it? There's yes, we can repeat music from hearing it, but esoterically being able to use notation as a way of communicating to people who could esoterically understand it, blah, blah, blah. You know where I'm going with that. I mean, it's an age-old thing.
I can answer with, since in the SRIA, our name is in Latin, we do love Latin. I will quote a Latin citation by an author called Isidore of Sevilla, which is at the very beginning of the music theory, the Gregorian chant, who said in Latin, "Nisi memoria teneatur, soni pereunt, qui ascribi non possunt." Meaning, if you don't keep them in mind, if you don't keep them in mind, they do die, because you cannot write them. At that time, you couldn't write music. But this leads us to the theory of memory, which has a very, very important place in esotericism, with Giordano Bruno, for instance. So I think that even before music was able to be written down and to be developed with music theory, there was a very huge field of music theory and music esotericism even. If you consider that, for instance, esotericism is a way of describing spiritual content in music, this is at the beginning of music, with the Gregorian melodies, which had been transmitted by memory before being able to be written down.
Seen an answer to my next question. I mean, I don't know if you've studied music history as you to this level, but originally back in like 500 AD, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he came up with a staff, and his staff, or stave, as we could say in English, was of 5 lines and 3 spaces. But later on, very quickly, an Italian came up with a 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now, 5 and 4 are very significant numbers. And of course, this gave us the musical scale and notation that we have today. And the 5 lines were called the pentagram. And of course, in Rosicrucianism, the pentagram is very significant. And my question would be, why did they use the word pentagram other than it was 5 lines? I don't understand.
I think it comes back to the hand.
Oh, 5 digits.
Yeah. Just, but there is, I mean,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, because you got this author from Italy, is Guido d'Arezzo, who is very well known for his mano guidoniana, which is a way of recalling sound, and it came from, I mean, clever people without artificial intelligence had to develop tools from the body at the very beginning.
Brilliant. You do understand history of music.
Thank you.
Oh,
I cannot understand you. I cannot listen to you.
Yeah, we couldn't hear what you were saying there. I think, Alex, you've muted everybody.
We've moved on.
And we can't see you either, Alex.
I was just saying it was a continuing conversation, but we have officially moved on.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Wayne, you have your hand raised. Please, over to you.
Yeah, just a very quick comment apropos the stave, which Alex mentioned. There have been at various times a thing called a great stave, which was, by today's standards, for a double stave, like piece of piano music. It's got the 2 sets of 5 lines and 4 spaces above each other. But the great stave, it had a 3rd line, another line in between. So in fact, it was 11 lines together. But the difficulty there, and it's partly why we have black and white notes on the piano, because you've got no reference point. It's too much to assimilate 11 lines, which is why it's come down to 5 lines and 4 spaces.
Yeah,
and why we have the black notes on the piano, because if they were all white notes, you couldn't even begin to know which ones you were going for initially. So these are sort of reference points. But an interesting point to have brought up by Alistair.
Thank you very much, Wayne. Kevin, do you have any closing remarks or anything you'd like to share with everybody?
I just wanted to thank you so much, because as we said, presenting is sharing, and you should find something ready to listen and to pay attention to your stuff. And you've been a wonderful community and public for me to share today. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kevin. On behalf of the Metropolitan Study Group of the SRIA, thank you for your compositions and for sharing your thoughts on esoteric music today. Thank you to everybody that's attended from wherever you are in the world. Everybody at the Atlantis Bookstore, have a wonderful rest of your evening and continue your wonderful conversations there. And yeah, it's lovely to see everybody. And we look forward to seeing you on the 20th of December for our final presentation of 2025. I have the pleasure of presenting for that particular meeting, and I very much look forward to doing so. I look forward to seeing you all there. Anybody, any last particular comments you'd like to share before we leave?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Phil. So, yeah, thank you very much, Kevin. Take very good care. Have a wonderful evening, or wherever you are in the world. Have a lovely rest of your day. And,
have a nice weekend. And thank you, and looking forward to seeing you.
Take good care, everybody. Thank you.